Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, JTF. My name is Chaim Ben Pesach. This program is dedicated to elevating the soul of Sharon Williams. I have a question for those of you who want to decide how to vote in the election this November between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. Barack Hussein Obama, for 20 years, attended a church led by Jeremiah Wright, that among other things said, "God damn America."
No, not God bless America, God damn America, that's in the Bible.
Cursed America and said, "God damn America." That praised the slaughter of 3,000 Americans on 9/11, said the chickens have come home to roost and America's just getting what she deserves.
We have supported state terrorism against the Palestinians and black South Africans, and now we are indignant because the stuff we have done overseas is now brought right back into our own front yards. America's chickens are coming home to roost.
A church that said that the very word Israel is a dirty word.
And now even more controversy involving Reverend Wright. An internet search reveals church bulletins over the past year with controversial pastor pages from the Reverend. Some reprint anti-Israel writings from a range of people, from Archbishop Desmond Tutu to an advisor to Elijah Muhammad and Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam, and Hamas leader Musa Abu Marzouk. One of Marzouk's columns, reprinted by the church from the Los Angeles Times, says, "Why should any Palestinian recognize the monstrous crimes carried out by Israel's founders and continued by its deformed modern apartheid state?"
When you have your church bulletin print some of this stuff and you attend it over years, how could he not address it?
A church filled with the most vicious racism against whites and anti-Semitism.
Put up with, who cares about what a poor black man has to face every day in a country and a culture controlled by rich white people. Somebody missed that. You got nervous because we got some white members here. I am still in Bible country. I am still in the text. Jesus was a poor black man who lived in a country and who lived in a culture that was controlled by rich white people. The Romans were rich. The Romans were Italians, which means they were European, which means they were white. And the Romans ran everything in Jesus' country. It just came to me within the past few weeks, y'all, why so many folk are hating on Barack Obama. He doesn't fit the model. He ain't white.
A church that honored Louis Farrakhan, that marched with Louis Farrakhan, honored Louis Farrakhan, went on joint trips with Louis Farrakhan.
Is that when Louis Farrakhan speaks, black America listens. Knowing him as I have for 30-some years now, I'm not going to let somebody else tell me that he can't be somebody who's a colleague of mine.
Louis Farrakhan, who has said that Hitler was a great man, Judaism is a gutter religion, all whites are devils, the entire white race is going to be exterminated by Allah. He's called for genocide against whites in general and Jews in particular.
That the white race is a race of devils.
Saying that he likes when the Jews compare him to Hitler because, in his view, because he said, and I quote, "Hitler was a great man. Hitler was a very great man." Now, that was the church that Barack Hussein Obama attended for 20 years.
I don't think that my church is actually particularly controversial.
This is a church that I have been a member of for 20 years. This is a well-established, typical, historically African-American church on the south side of Chicago with a wonderful set of ministries.
Did I know him to be an occasionally fierce critic of American domestic and foreign policy? Of course.
Did you know that he had made these statements before the videotape appeared?
You know, frankly, I didn't. I wasn't in church during the time that these statements were made.
Did I ever hear him make remarks that could be considered controversial while I sat in the church? Yes.
I did not hear such incendiary language
myself personally, either in conversations with him or when I was in the pew.
Did I strongly disagree with many of his political views? Absolutely.
Had I heard those in the church, I would have told Reverend Wright that, that I profoundly disagreed with them. They didn't reflect my values, and they didn't reflect my ideals.
Just as I'm sure many of you have heard remarks from your pastors, priests, or rabbis with which you strongly disagree.
Do you repudiate the man? Do you repudiate the comments? Do you repudiate both?
No, I would not repudiate the man. As I said, this is somebody who I have known for 17 years.
Not know, though, that, I mean, a couple days after 9/11, he said, this was America's chickens coming home to roost, a result of what he called American terrorism around the world. I mean, you may not have been there, but you must have heard that he had said these things.
A view that sees white racism as endemic.
And so many of the sermons that I heard were extraordinarily powerful. One of them, which I've written about, titled The Audacity of Hope, is one that I helped inspire my convention speech.
No one in the church ever said to you, man, last week you missed this sermon, Reverend Wright said this, or, I mean, I think I read in your books that you used to listen to tapes of Reverend Wright when you were at Harvard Law School. So you had no idea.
And this helps explain, perhaps, my relationship with Reverend Wright. As imperfect as he may be, he has been like family to me. He strengthened my faith, officiated my wedding, and baptized my children.
It's the church that he gave tens of thousands of dollars out of his own pocket. His charitable contributions every year went to that church. Almost all of his charitable contributions from him and from Michelle Obama went to that church. He wrote in his books about his tremendous admiration and love for Jeremiah Wright and for what Jeremiah Wright was preaching. That is the true Obama. The Obama that went to that church for 20 years, that gave money to that church for 20 years. The Obama that went to Louis Farrakhan's Million Man March. Barack Hussein Obama traveled all the way from Chicago to Washington to attend Farrakhan's Nazi march. Farrakhan, again, who says all whites are going to be exterminated, the entire white race is the devil. Whites are all devils, and all whites must be exterminated. Farrakhan teaches that an evil scientist named Yaqub created the white race in a test tube. I mean, just madness, complete insanity. And Obama so admired Farrakhan's Nazi hate-mongering that he went all the way from Chicago to Washington to attend Farrakhan's rally. Now, what if the Republican candidate for president had done something similar? What if the Republican candidate for president had been a member of a Ku Klux Klan church for 20 years, or a white supremacist church for 20 years? Would that have been made an issue? Would he have been able to get elected president? He wouldn't have been able to get elected president, and rightfully so. And rightfully so, because someone who does that, whether it's white racism or black racism, someone who is part of something like that should not be allowed to be elected president. Someone who's a member of the Klan or the Nazis or some evil group like that, or who is associated with that, should never be allowed to go near the office of the presidency. Or if he attended Nazi rallies or Klan rallies, can you imagine if a white Republican had done that? Would he be taken seriously as a candidate for president? Are you kidding? Now, here's my question. Barack Hussein Obama has already said, he was caught on a live mic. He didn't know the mic was on, but he said on a live mic, he said to the Russian president, after I'm reelected, I'm going to have more flexibility. In other words, when I'm reelected and I don't have to face the voters again, I'm going to be able to give Russia what she wants at the expense of American national security.
My last week, basically. Yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah. Okay. I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and I stand with him.
That's what he was promising our Russian enemies. And Obama made the same promise to the Egyptian foreign minister. The Egyptian foreign minister said on Nile television, on Egyptian television, that Obama told him that he's a Muslim. Obama said to him, I'm secretly a Muslim, and after the election, once I'm reelected, I'm going to begin my campaign against Israel, and I'm going to begin to push for an Islamic agenda. In other words, the real Obama will come out once he doesn't have to face the voters again. Now, I don't know if he's going to come out and say, hey, I fooled all of you, I'm really a Muslim. He won't have to do that. I don't think he would do that. That would be foolish, because then he'd get a lot of resistance. But what he will do is aggressively push an Islamic agenda and a socialistic agenda far more aggressively even than he's done in his first term. And in his first term, he's been doing it pretty aggressively already. But he's going to do it far more aggressively. And the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, the world's last remaining superpower, is an extremely powerful person. He does not need the approval of Congress to do most of what he wants to do in foreign affairs, for instance. He could do unbelievably damaging things in the foreign arena that could have devastating effects on the course of world history in order to advance the cause of his Muslim brothers and in order to advance the hateful ideology that was always the real Barack Hussein Obama. Do you really want this individual to be re-elected to a second term where he'll never have to face the voters again, where the real Barack Hussein Obama will come out? Do you want Jeremiah Wright and Al Sharpton and Louis Farrakhan and their ideology controlling the United States of America? Because that really is what will happen if Obama's re-elected. He will use the power of the office of the presidency in order to pursue policies that will be devastating for the United States, for Israel, and for the Western world. He will brutally pressure little Israel to commit national suicide. He will make concessions to the Russians and other enemies, and Communist China and other enemies of the United States, on a scale that will forever endanger American national security and even American survival. He will, through executive fiat, open our borders completely to third world and Muslim immigrants coming and flooding into the United States. We will face an unprecedented catastrophe if he is re-elected to a second term. He'll never have to worry about the voters again, and he will have the full powers of the office of the presidency to pursue his policies. And if anyone criticizes him or his policies, you know what they're going to say. They're going to say, if you criticize Obama, you're a racist. When in reality, the opposite is true. The real racist is Obama and his supporters, Al Sharpton, Louis Farrakhan, Jeremiah Wright. Those are the racists. But if anybody stands against the true racists, they call those of us that are saying enough of this hatred and enough of your racism and anti-Semitism, they call us racists. It's the Orwellian ultimate example of a world gone mad and a world turned upside down, and it'll be much worse if, God forbid, Obama's re-elected. That's why we need to expose this and wake the American people up. The vast majority of Americans will not vote for a Muslim if they knew that he was a Muslim, and he is a Muslim. The vast majority of Americans would not vote for him if they knew the real truth about him. But the Republicans and Mitt Romney, as much as we have to support Mitt Romney because he's the only alternative now, unfortunately, they're afraid to say politically incorrect things. We still have to support them, even though we're annoyed that they're not saying the politically incorrect things. We still have to support them. But if they won't tell the real politically incorrect truth about Obama, then we have to. If you understand that, and if you are concerned, as you should be, if you have an ounce of sanity about the future of the United States, of Israel, of Western civilization, of the world, in the hands of Obama in a second term when he doesn't have to face the voters again, if you're very concerned about this, then you have to join our forum and join our movement so that together we can expose Obama, defeat him for re-election, and save the world from a terrible catastrophe. The link to join our forum is below. You don't have to be Jewish to join the JTF forum. About half of our members are not Jewish. Hope to see you on the forum. Shalom.